Welcome to How to Ruin Your Own Reputation, the show where I talk to people who either have unusual jobs or are living lifestyles that most people just don't quite understand. And they're doing it unapologetically. I truly believe that while the details of our stories are personal and unique to us, there's often a theme or themes running through them that so many of us can connect with if we just take the time to listen. On the show today, we have the host and co-host of the #1 sugar dating podcast in the world called Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. Sugar dating, the dynamic between the sugar daddy and sugar baby, is a growing phenomena. And as Marcus will share with us, part of that is because it offers a mutual satisfaction that you don't often find in traditional dating. I've been listening to Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. I'm finding it very enlightening and entertaining. And it's left me with so many questions. So we're just gonna jump right in and talk to Marcus and Lilly. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much for having us on your show. And we have a lot to divulge about sugar dating. So ask away.
That's perfect. It's such a topic that it's an interesting one. And I think there's a lot of preconceived notions about it, a lot of feelings around it. And first thing I want to ask is this. You hear sugar daddy, sugar baby, and you automatically assume that you're talking about a young girl in need of money, an older guy who has money and is looking for sex. And that's kind of what you know. But in listening to your podcast, I know you had one co-host who was talking about how when she actually came into it, she had her own money. And she wasn't looking for someone to take care of her. So that surprised me. And then you were saying that also you came out of a marriage and you were looking for something different. So can you explain sort of how the whole dynamic works?
Well, I guess let's just go from the very start on my journey. I grew up traditional religious family, Southern Baptist, Texas, Southern upbringing, find a good girl, marry her, have kids, live happily ever after. And what I found was at my 10-year class reunion, nobody was living happily ever after. They found a girl, they got married, they had kids, and then they were all divorced. Or they had all this baggage and things weren't going well. And I hadn't been married yet. And I just started looking at the situation going, is this a fairy tale? Is marriage for me? So what happened was in 2001, I ended up finding a very nice lady. We dated for 10 months. We got married under some interesting circumstances. She was actually a Canadian citizen and working here in the U.S. under her ex-husband's sponsorship for a green card status. And then he ended up getting remarried to another foreigner because he was a dual citizen. And when he went and applied for that green card, they said, oh, you can't sponsor both. So we're kicking her out of the country. So we go down to the INS office and we're like, hey, what can we do? I mean, she had a great job. We were dating for 10 months and she was buying a house. And they said, well, you ever thought about getting married? Well, there's a checkbox. So we went to Vegas, got married. So, yeah, so it was an interesting way that I got married. I don't know it probably did affect the quality of our marriage. I'm not sure kind of how it happened, but I gave it a shot. I did not get married to get divorced. And, after 16 years, it ran its course. Yeah. I mean, about a couple months into it, I thought I might have made a big mistake, but you know what? I kind of thought, no, I did not get married to get divorced. So we're going to give it our best. We did counseling, we did therapy. She couldn't have children because of some medical issues. And so that kind of led to some depression. Anyway, long story short, 16 years was the expiration date of that marriage. And then I found myself single again in like 2016, and dating has changed so much with the internet, apps, swiping, just all kinds of different ways to meet girls. And I was never a guy to go try to hit on girls at bars. I never had the good pickup lines. They just sounded like pickup lines, right? Are there any really? I don't know. There's some better than others, obviously. I just felt like an idiot. And then you never really know their status. I mean, how many of them like, oh, thank you, but I have a boyfriend, or thank you, I'm married. And then, you're like, well, I wasted all that time. So that's why I really gravitate towards internet dating, because now you have a list and pictures and bios of people who are willing and ready to meet you, or supposedly. So, I found myself single again. And I started swiping, and I just was not, having any luck with the swiping apps. And we all know what those are. They're Tinder, Bumble,
Hmm.
Match, things like that, Hinge now. So I found this, and over the years, I had accumulated some wealth. We had invested in a lot of real estate. I always felt really good about real estate investments, and we'd built our portfolio slowly, buying a couple houses here and there, renting them out. And, the market's been up and down, but the market started getting really strong. I had a nice little portfolio, and I don't mind helping somebody financially. So basically, I found a way to meet women who are financially motivated, because, well, most of them, let's just put it that way, most of them. So I found the site as a sugar daddy, sugar baby site. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And what happened when I started looking at the profiles, they were better quality people than I was swiping on the other apps. They actually returned my messages. They actually messaged me first. I had more dates than I even could handle. So that was a nice, refreshing change. Now, we went through a big process of weeding out the bullshit and trying to find quality and people that are basically looking for what you're looking for. So that's kind of the premise of the podcast, is because I found those people. I found such quality people, and these people aren't exactly motivated. Not all of them are motivated by money. They're motivated to find somebody that has their shit together, like somebody that's in business or has found some success. A lot of them are looking for mentorship, and a lot of
Yeah.
them make their own money, and they just, why am I going to swipe on somebody on another app? I don't even know this guy could be homeless. He literally could have just cleaned up for the picture, and he lives in a box. You just don't know enough information. So this was a great way for everybody who's kind of looking for a quote unquote older successful man, to find each other. So we have a
Wait,
lot of
is there, sorry, I was going to say, is there a screening process? Because you're saying, you don't know who you're getting, but do you have to prove how much money you have in order to be on the site, or can you scam
no,
that stuff?
actually, and the girls tell me all the time, my co-host and my guest, on how there's a lot of people that just pose. They're posers.
Right.
They're salt
Yes.
daddies or Splenda daddies. They're fake, basically. So we
Oh
get
my God,
into
that's great.
all of these subjects, and we kind of talk about how to expose the ones that aren't for real, and how to actually get to the quality men, or if they're looking for a sugar mama, there are rare, but there are a few on the site. How to get to those quality people that are real. And my co-hosts are finding unbelievable success at finding men that are worth 20 million, 50 million, 100, even $1 billion, who are willing and able to help them, not only help them financially, but help mentor them and help give them networking contacts and just some structure on how to make their lives better. Because we're not all looking to just have a girl be at our beck and call, and treat her like a slave. We're actually trying to make these people better. And what we teach on the show is okay, you sugar babies, you're coming into this money, a lot of times much better money than you could ever make working, but do something with it, make yourself better. So you don't have to depend on it, because desperate people do desperate things. And we
Mhm.
don't want that. We don't want that kind of a situation, because if you've got your own money, then you don't have to give in to some of the bullshit the men throw at you. Right?
Yeah, and that sounds great. I think the tough part to kind of get over is that it sounds great. You're talking about mentoring, you're talking about this mutual respect, but then the whole sugar daddy, sugar baby thing, it sounds like such a difference in power, such an imbalance of power. Do you think, being very honest, Marcus, do you think that there is a feeling, and some men, I have to assume that some men will go into this because they don't want to go to another kind of dating app where because there are some for professional people and executives who could be quality
Mhm.
people making a good amount of money. But it seems like there might be some people who like that kind of shift in power and like to feel like there is a bit of ownership or a little bit of you owe me or this kind of mentorship is one way, but it could also be like an idolization, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're 100% correct. There's going to be men all over the spectrum, and that is a great majority of them, probably. Lily, what are
Mm.
you finding?
Mm-hmm.
So, there are some men on the site who, or in this lifestyle, who really do want to be dominating and sort of in control, but you would be really surprised. There's also men on there who want a woman to kind of take the lead. Um, Time and again, I've been messaged by men who would like some type of a cuckold relationship to
Mm-hmm.
where they're sort of being dominated
Mm.
and they're sort of, they almost want to be treated badly and abused. Like that is their fetish. That is what excites them. And it seems sort of like a strange dynamic to me, but I've been offered opportunities like that numerous times. So it's
So,
just, it's all over the place. It really is on what men are seeking. And you have to ask, you have to do your due diligence and say, what are you seeking? Because this is what I'm looking for. And
Mm.
it's a lot of work to figure out if you're on the same wavelength with these gentlemen. And sometimes you are,
Yeah,
and sometimes you're not.
I would think that you would need a lot of communication because there
Oh,
would be
yes.
some expectations. And I think it could be a dangerous situation if the expectations aren't made really clear on both ends, right? A guy doesn't want to be taken advantage of, and a woman doesn't want to be taken advantage of either, or, physically kind of thing. So
Yes.
I'm assuming that there really has to be some good communication around what are you expecting? What do you want? And then taking it from there. Can you tell me, Lily, how you got into it?
So my story's similar and different than Marcus's. It's similar in that I had been married for a number of years, like 14 years. I'd been in a relationship that for the most part was turned out to be very sexually repressive. And when we finally decided to part ways, we parted as friends, but just the romance was gone. And so I found myself in my 50s, divorced, living in a really small rural town, and the dating pool was completely stagnant. And so I took to online dating as a means of, I was single and I was ready to mingle. And so that was how I was going to meet people. And like Marcus, the traditional dating sites just really weren't doing it for me. And I started Googling like um, educated, higher caliber, dating up type of situations because I really wanted to find um, men to date who were intelligent and successful and able to go on adventures and have fun and travel. And I just really wasn't finding that on the other websites. And so I got in there and started exploring and found some amazing things going on in the sugar dating lifestyle.
Well, I have to say it's
now,
surprising to me. Sorry, just to say, because I mean, as I
yeah.
said, I'm 52, and hearing you say you're 52, I'm like, oh, so wait a second. Good to know at the back of my. But
Well,
you do as well because you assume. Did you go on thinking that maybe would be all younger? Are because I would think. I was joking earlier that at 52, my sugar daddy would have to be, you know, near the last breath kind of thing. But
the crazy thing is, I get propositions from all ages. It is really surprising to me. And there are people, I think there's even like a couple of like 19, 20-year-olds on there that have messaged me, which seems insane. Yeah. Um, all the way up
well,
to,
a lot of young guys dig older
yeah.
women, so I'm actually not that surprised. I'm
But
that's yeah.
I'm surprised that they supposedly have,
That's
the
the
wealth
surprising part.
and the education and the success to feel like they have the makings of a good sugar daddy. I don't know. But all the way up to I think the oldest person was 75 that has messaged me. Yeah. So it's all over the place with ages.
But being an older sugar baby Lilly has found a niche that's unlike any other. And I was surprised because I was actually the very first person she had met in this lifestyle almost a year ago. And we just really became very good friends. And now she works for me and she's a co-host of the podcast. And so every day when she's sitting across from me, she's reading messages that she gets from these men. And it's very good for podcast research. And I'm just really curious, but there's not a lot of people in their 50s for these older men to choose from. And literally, she's been offered multi-millions of dollars to spend time with men who just want the company and really just don't have anywhere to turn.
That was going to be another one of my questions is you hear sometimes people say, oh, it's not always sex, it's just companionship. Is it mostly sex? Are there people who just want somebody to have on like a pretty woman on their arm for events that they go to? Is there that? Yeah.
Everybody wants something different. There are gentlemen who truly, I mean, especially if you're older like that, your sex drive oftentimes is waning, but you still like companionship. You still enjoy the company of a beautiful woman who is a good communicator and fun to be with. And I've found that lots of times in lots of circumstances. Like Marcus said, I was offered by one older gentleman and I declined the offer, but he offered for me if I would be his girlfriend for 5 years and live with him in his condo. And he had 2 master suites. So I would have my own part of the house and he would have his own part of the house. And so I would have literally no living expenses. He just wanted me to go with him to his attorney and sign up a 5-year contract. And I would inherit at the end of that term, $2.5 million and the condo when he passed and all his stocks and bonds.
Okay. So hold on a second. So did you have to be exclusive? Is that?
Yes, I do believe I do believe he wanted exclusivity. We didn't really get that far because I didn't really have great chemistry with him. The age gap was very apparent and very significant for me. And I wasn't comfortable with it. And I knew that I would never want to be his full-time girlfriend, which is what he was looking for. That's what he was seeking. And also the discussion really didn't go very far because I told him, I appreciate it, but I just am not drawn to you the way you feel that you're drawn to me. So,
right. And at a 5-year contract, that sounds,
I know
that's tough.
It was, it was a little too transactional. And also just, he's a lovely gentleman, just not my person. And we're still friends. We go to lunch like once every 3 months and he's a great guy. Just, the attraction factor was not there for me. And that's hugely important to me. Right. More so than the money.
Now, it's another thing too. Is it ever where there's one sugar baby and one sugar daddy, or most of the time, do you have multiple people that you date? Like on both ends, are there multiple sugar daddies and multiple sugar babies? Or is it sometimes it's like a one-on-one type of thing?
It can be one-on-one. It can be.
Yeah. Sugar dating is basically the same as, it's got all the similarities of regular dating. It's just compensated dating. So when you swipe on another app, going to the sex part, they're kind of expecting sex too, right? On Tinder, people, that's a hookup app. Yeah. It's just now, at least the girls are getting something for their time, right?
True. True. Oh, I hear that. I get that.
Yeah. So, but you know, we start out with the great thing about sugar dating is the expectations are kind of clear. Whereas in sometimes the other dating situations, you might immediately be looking at this person as a long-term partner, somebody that you could eventually introduce to the family, somebody you could imagine yourself marrying, having kids with. There is none of these expectations in sugar dating on the first few dates. Now, does it eventually happen? Absolutely. Would Lily like to find her person? Absolutely. Me too. Right. But
Right.
it takes the pressure off. Hey, let's go out to eat. Let's have a good time. Let's enjoy our company. Great conversation. Maybe some bedroom fun after. You go your way, I go mine. Let's keep in touch and let's do it again. If you felt, that you really wanted to see him again. And it doesn't have to be exclusive in the beginning, but you can work to that point. I've met many girls and dated, two or three or four at a time, but then I find one I really like. And so I start phasing out. And then we can have that talk down the road. But the nice thing is the expectation is not there in the beginning.
Got it. Now, how would you differentiate? Because people are going to listen, they are going to hear the whole dating. You said even it's compensated dating.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you differentiate that from sex work?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people do lump sugar baby as sex work, but when I was married, I took care of my wife. I took care of the bills. I took care of the house. She did work. She had a great job. But I said, just put your money in your own account. That's your freedom. You do with it what you want. You don't have to ask. And she so enjoyed having that financial aspect. But I paid for everything. I took care of her. When we divorced, I did have a girlfriend. Again, I helped her financially. And I helped her with her rent. And at times that she was struggling, I helped her. What's the difference if I have a sugar baby? It's the same thing.
Right.
It's just called a sugar baby versus a girlfriend or a wife. It's the exact same scenario. So basically it's all sex work.
Marriage is sex work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No, I know, I hear you. And it's the one thing that might be a little bit different is I was reading up on PPM, right? The pay per meet. That sounds closer to what people would think would be traditional sex work. Because isn't that sort of like, because I don't know how it works either. Let's say you and I decide to meet, but I say, okay, so we're going to go for dinner or whatever. We're going to meet for one night and then you're going to pay me whatever. That sounds very transactional and very sort of pay for.
And actually,
service.
99% of the sugar daddies prefer it that way because me personally, I've set people up on weekly allowances or monthly allowances like, hey, I'll give you $4,000 a month and here's some expectations. I'd like to see you at least a couple times a week. And we can travel, we can do this, but it's just a flat fee. But then it puts a lot of pressure on the relationship because now that person is thinking, oh my God, I got to squeeze this person in my time. And I didn't fulfill my obligation. Whereas pay per meet, hey, got a concert I'd like to go to. You want to join me or dinner or whatever? And then we go, here's some money for your time and we'll be in touch. And when we go out again, I'll compensate you again for your time. And you'll be surprised. We did a interview with Dr. Sexberry, and she's actually very highly ranked in the sexuality division on podcasting. But she interviewed someone. It was a researcher, and they said that 40% of sugar babies do not have sex with their sugar daddies.
Like ever?
Yeah. I don't know how deep that statistic go, but it was a little surprising to me. I would think though, it would be about maybe 20%, 25%. I've actually took a girl out probably 10 to 12 times over a year. We never had sex once. I just really enjoyed her company. And she just wasn't comfortable in it. We just never went that direction. I never really felt comfortable going that direction because of some things that she told me. She had some bad experiences with some men who had taken advantage of her, but I really liked her. And we just had a lot of fun. We'd go to dinner, we'd talk, we'd go to movies, all kinds of things. I'd help her out financially, but I never expected sex or never even pressured her for that.
I mean, I guess what it comes down to, really, like any situation, is as long as it's consensual, a consensual situation between two adults, then what's the problem?
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think of it this way. I when I go on a date with a sugar daddy, I mean, if we have great chemistry and it leads to sex, that's wonderful, but it's not expected. It shouldn't be expected. It should be, you want to hang out with me, you want to spend time with me, you want to have a positive interaction. That doesn't necessarily always look like sex. It really doesn't.
Well, that's a really important point to make. I think that's a very important point to make, is that it's not expected. It's that,
not at all.
That I think is going to surprise people, because you'll still get paid, right? If you meet up with somebody and you meet up and maybe the chemistry isn't there, you're still going to be paid for your time, correct?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
There, and I don't even know if I would say being paid for your time. I think maybe pampered, spoiled, gifted, because they really appreciated what you're bringing to the table. So I don't know if I'd like to talk about it as being paid, but more as spoiled or gifted or pampered, because you're bringing something to the table that they really do appreciate.
Got it. Have you ever been in situations where that were scary, that you did question if it was the right thing?
Let me think. I've been in some really awkward situations, but I am pretty firm about always meeting in a public place for the first time and spending some time getting to know someone. I also am really big on FaceTiming prior to meeting, just because with me, chemistry is so key that you can usually tell right away if, there's something about the person's voice or mannerisms that just really isn't attractive to you.
Got it. And Marcus, have you had situations where you've met somebody and you instantly were like, wait, this isn't going to work?
Yeah, that's why I don't do dinner dates. I used to, when I first began, would invite somebody to dinner for the first time and we'd chat. But you know how it is. Sometimes instantly when somebody walks up and you say hello and you exchange a few words, you're like, I am not even remotely attracted to this person.
That's a lot of time. Yeah.
We like to do, drinks or, meet them for coffee or something like that and just kind of break the ice and then go from there. We call it a meet and greet, and that way you can get a good feel. Now, I did FaceTime with Lilly before we met because she lived 3 hours away. So it was pretty important that she knew what she was getting into. But I advise people to FaceTime, but sometimes I just like rolling the dice and seeing what shows up. It adds a little bit of the excitement to the thing. But unfortunately, I've been disappointed more times than I have been surprised. But I do have the story. And she's a very interesting girl. We talk a lot on the podcast about fake profiles and how to figure out scammers and things like that. So I was 100% positive there was this fake profile. It was brand new. The girl, she looked Russian. She had on this hat. It was in a cold environment. I think he even said, she had Russian baby or something like that in her profile. And anyway, I was just messing around with her and we decided on a place to meet. So I, fortunately, it was right next to my house. So I'm sitting there just literally laying in bed, scrolling on my phone. And she's like, okay, I'm 10 minutes away. And I'm like, this girl is really coming, I think. Well, there's just no way because I'm waiting for this. This is what I'm waiting for. Oh, hey, Daddy, I don't have enough for gas. Can you send me some real quick? I'm on my way. And then they never show up. Right. So people will milk, $7,500 out of you and then never show up. And if they do that 10 times a day, it's a pretty good living. Right.
Right.
So I'm waiting for this scam to start. And I'm like, why has she not asked me for something yet? So I get up and I'm like, well, the worst will happen. I'll go, catch a game at the sports bar and grab a drink. So sure enough, I drive up And she goes, "Hey, I just parked." And I'm like, "Oh, I did too." And I look over, and out of the car was one of the most beautiful Russian girls I've ever seen. And we go in and and I'm looking at her the whole time, and I'm like, your profile is so badly written, and your pictures make it look like you're fake. And she goes, "Oh, I know, I did that on purpose." So every now and then, you will meet somebody that actually surprises you. And she's still a part of my life to this day. Yeah, we're still friends,
Wow.
and she travels a lot to Europe. And when she's here, we'll go hang out and have sushi together. But it's an interesting thing. Even though she's 21 and I'm 54, you would think, why are you hanging out with such a young girl? What could possibly you have in common? Well, we really don't have much in common. But I learn so much from the youth, and there's no way that anyone could ever have all the knowledge in the world. So I really enjoy learning from their experiences, especially on like technology and ways to communicate, things that have to do with, just how they interact now, and even new words they're saying, like
social
just,
media.
yeah. So I learned so much from the youth that I don't discount them. Yeah. Now, would it be somebody that I would bring with me to introduce to my friends at my country club? No, because I would be a little bit embarrassed. They'd be thinking, so is this your granddaughter?
Yikes.
Yeah. But,
Well,
we have a great time. We have a great time.
yeah.
And when we go out and talk, and she's a great girl.
Now that you brought that up, because you're so sort of successful at it, you've done it for a long time, and you're pretty open about it, do people in your life know that you're a sugar daddy?
Yeah,
It's funny
that
even
is,
say.
you talk
It's a
about
fun word to
living
say.
unapologetically. That part I don't, walk around bragging about. I do love going to Vegas with my sugar babies, because nobody gives a there, but because that's a very normal thing. But yeah,
Exactly.
walking around in town, yeah, you do get some interesting looks. I actually had this. You reminded me of a story. So again, was dating a 21-year-old, and we went to a concert, and I had my arm around her. She was really tired that day or something, and I think I think she actually was nodding off during the concert. But anyway, I'm just kind of rubbing her back or this and that. And so um, she was trying to get out of, when the concert was over. We were seated in a small little venue, but when the concert was over, she was trying to rush out and get in front of the people, and I'm trying to keep up with her. And I guess some lady that's sitting behind us thought that I was maybe trying to sex traffic her or something. Or
Jesus
anyway,
Christ.
she grabs her arm on the way out, and she says, "Come to the bathroom with me." And we're like, I'd finally caught up to her at this point, and we look at this lady and we're like, "What?" She goes, "Come to the bathroom with me right now." And she's pulling her to the bathroom, and she's like, "What's for?" She goes, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you okay?" So she's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." But it just, to this lady, it set off some alarms that, what is this
Well,
older man doing creeping on this younger girl?
although I got to tell you, I think it's kind of cool that she did that. I think she was looking out. So it's kind of,
Yeah,
you never know. So there's, that
you
part of me
never
that's like,
do.
you don't. So kind of good for her for doing that, for
Yeah.
standing up. Now, one thing I remember listening to one of your podcasts, I got to ask both of you, as far as when it comes to gifting and sort of appreciating with that, what was the most, I mean, I remember hearing you say something about a first date in Vegas, Marcus.
Okay. I've had a
Did you do
couple of
that?
those. Yeah, I've taken some chances, and somebody I was talking to I'd never met was messaging me, and she's like, "Hey, what are you up to this weekend?" I was like, "Well, I'm actually in Vegas right now." And she goes, "Oh, I don't have any kids. You want me to come?" And I said, "All right, I'll get you the flight." And she flew up, and we had a fantastic time. Lots of stories from that trip, though. I learned a lot about her, but we did have a good time. And she's still a friend
And
of mine. But I just figured out that you cannot give her Tito's and soda, which is a vodka drink, because
yeah,
she
I know.
doesn't know
It's
when to say when
crazy.
on that. But otherwise, sober, she's amazing.
Yeah, aren't we all? But so, Lily, that's an interesting thing you bring up though, as far as drinking. Lily, do you have any rules around drinking when it comes to, let's say, meeting somebody for the first time? I would think that maybe, yeah, again, first time meeting somebody, you have to be pretty careful. Do you have any kind of rules going into a first meet and greet?
You do have to be kind of careful. I like to do coffee or FaceTime the first time. I will meet for like a drink or two, but I always, because I don't like to drink and drive. So I will just have like one or two, and I live nearby. And so I know the area very well. But yeah, you do have to be careful. One of our co-hosts actually went, I don't think it wasn't even a meet and greet from sugar dating. It was just a guy she met when she was out at a bar with friends, and he offered to buy her a wine, and he brings her a wine and there's something floating in the wine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you do have to be very careful. You really do.
That's true. Have you ever been offered a trip on your first date?
Okay, not for a first date, but I have traveled with several different gentlemen. I went with one gentleman to Mexico, another gentleman to Mexico. And then the latest guy I've been seeing, I've been on 2 trips with him. We've been to the East Coast, and we've also been to the West Coast together. So, and sometimes traveling with a sugar daddy is fantastic. And sometimes it's a little difficult. That's a lot of time to be around somebody 24/7.
So you really learn the compatibility when you travel with somebody.
Oh, right. Because you're saying, right, you don't really know them that well. And so it's a lot of time to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're just dating like once or twice a week, it's very different than actually an extended trip where you guys are with each other around the clock for, say, 4 or 5 days. It's a whole different experience.
Now, when you're dating in this field, I'll say the sugar daddy, are you also dating in outside of it? Because I know that some of your co-hosts talked about dating also in the regular traditional dating, and how they find it more difficult. And I'm just wondering how that works, or is it usually you just stick to one? Because I wonder how a guy you would meet outside of the sugar daddy realm would feel, or do they know? I could see it getting kind of complicated.
I am currently dating, I call them civilians. I've dated a couple of civilians recently, and I don't tell them about the lifestyle because I don't think people who aren't in the lifestyle will necessarily understand it. So yeah, I just don't bring it up.
And you don't need to, right? I guess unless you're going to be exclusive, it's just like until you decide that, then you can date whoever you want. Yeah, I would think that if you're dating a civilian and you tell them that you also have a sugar daddy, then they'll just assume that that's what you're after with them.
Yeah.
Correct. And so,
or they would get real judgmental. There are some people who are really quite judgmental. There's actually, this is the surprising part. There are men on the Seeking site who are 100% judgmental of any type of gifting. They think that your compensation is just the pleasure of their company. And you shouldn't expect anything additional other than just a nice dinner.
That drives the girls crazy when they find these guys, but they are they run into them quite a bit.
What? I'm confused. Hold on a second. So they're like sugar daddies without the sugar.
Right.
Yeah, they don't get they don't get the premise of sugar dating. They don't think about, really gifting or spoiling or pampering their girl. They just think you should just be so grateful to enjoy the pleasure of their company. And they'll pay for dinner, but they're not going to do anything above and beyond that.
Interestingly, they're on a sugar daddy site. So they want whatever they think in their head is a sugar baby, right? That's the thing. Like, they're not on a regular site. They are going onto a sugar daddy site because they want what they imagine a sugar baby to be. So I wonder if they think that their company is enough, but they want more from you. Like that's audacity right
Well,
there.
it is,
That
but
is.
a big reason
Crap.
why they're there is because the quality of women is far superior on this site than any other site I've ever come across.
Well, I think
So,
a lot of women are going to be listening to this and gonna have an issue.
well,
With that.
I'm saying in general terms, like when I'm on, and you're talking about traditional dating. I still use the other apps. I still have on my phone. I still open them up occasionally. I still swipe right. I just absolutely get nowhere. And then, but I'm telling you, most of the ones that match with me, I'm just not attracted to. But the quality that I have to choose from the girls who are seeking an older, successful gentleman it's just plentiful, at least where we live and in most large cities. Now we're in the metropolitan Phoenix area with about 5 million people just in this county. So, and Arizona State University is the number one sugar baby university in the world. So
Wow.
there's just
Ooh.
a plentiful there's a big choice of young, beautiful, motivated women seeking men of my type.
Now I have to ask you though. You say quality women. Now
Mm-hmm.
I need you to explain because again, there are going to be a lot of women saying, hold on a second. What do
Well,
you
it doesn't.
define as
Yeah, it doesn't
quality?
mean that the quality is not on the other sites. I'm just saying it's more in masses. There's just more of them. Yeah, I've met quality people on other sites, but it just you look at any successful athlete, you look at an actor, you looked at a president, or you look at somebody that's very highly regarded in their field. What is the ultimate man's accessory? It's a beautiful woman by their side, and they all have them, don't you think? I mean, it's
Oh,
just
but just here again, that feminist in me is saying,
well,
oh, you're
sure, but you
referring
know
to them
what?
as an accessory. Yikes.
Absolutely, but you could be the president of the United States as a woman or president of whatever country you're in. But that man who has you on his arm at an event, people are going to look at him as an elevated status, even though that woman could be running a country. So men, from the beginning of time, a lot of them have been judged by the women that they bring, that the women they attract.
Okay, but
I'll
honestly, hold on. So I just 1 second.
mm-hmm,
Just because it's interesting because you're saying on one hand you're talking about quality of women, and then you're saying sort of attractiveness. Because what if you've got a man who is of means, and he's got a woman on his arm who isn't, let's say, traditionally, stereotypically, she's not a supermodel, but she's
mm-hmm.
incredibly established, very
Yeah.
intelligent, very successful. Will his status be as high as the same guy with a 25-year-old
Actually, his
Victoria's
status will
Secret
probably
model?
be even more elevated if that woman is successful.
Hey.
But I'm going to give you an example. So I was at a party. It was at my country club, and this guy, just an ordinary guy, just one of us, and he brought this girl to the Christmas party that was stunning. Like she basically stopped everybody in her tracks. She was attractive and she was personable and she was fun. After the party, everybody looked at that guy differently. Everybody did. It elevated his status like no other. Before, he was just an ordinary, regular Joe. But when he brought that girl to the party, everybody started thinking, whoa, what does this guy have? And how did he attract such a woman? So that's kind of, I know it's not, some people don't like it, but that's just the way it is. I mean, and I'm telling you, everybody looked at him different. The men looked at him different and the women looked at him different. And you know what happened? The women became more attracted to this guy.
Mm.
I know you don't like to hear it, but it's absolutely 100% true. And I saw it happen right in front of my eyes. And this is while I was married. So, and this is before I'd ever even thought about getting into this lifestyle.
What did she do for a living?
I don't know. We didn't care.
That's exactly exactly.
We didn't get that far.
That is exactly my point. That is what was she like? What
Yeah, but I'll tell you what.
What were her hobbies?
Again, if somebody at my country club would have brought in, let's say, Meg Whitman or some very successful woman entrepreneur, business leader, again, they're elevated. Their status goes through the roof with everybody. And with status comes networking opportunities, job opportunities, business opportunities. There's a lot of benefit to that.
Interesting. So you said at the beginning that I know I'm pondering. You said at the beginning that you both, because somebody had asked, I had put this out on social media that I was going to be talking about this, and somebody had asked, and I asked kind of at the beginning about, is there anyone that comes into this who is seriously just seeking a long-term partner and they're not looking to really date? And I've heard you say on your podcast that you're not really the long-term necessarily guy. It would be more of like maybe a poly. I mean, listen, I'm not great at long-term monogamy. I have to put it out there. I don't have to put it out there, but I just did. But but
you added yourself.
Oh God, I've been doing that forever. Does this work for you because you get to meet a lot of different women? Do you think that this is something that suits your needs more than a long-term, or could you actually see yourself kind of settling down, as they say?
Oh, I could 100% see myself settling down with the right person. I just wasn't sure I could find that right person. And so in the meantime, I think dating is fun. I really enjoy the experience. I found out that I'm pretty much a sapiosexual, and I had to look that word up when I became single because I didn't even know what it meant. I just really enjoy, and I'm turned on by great, intelligent conversation. Now, I also enjoy experiencing different kinds of people. Doesn't mean I'm having sex with all these different people, but as you know, and you have friends, as you know, as when you hang out with one friend, you act a little differently than you do when you hang out with another friend. And then this other friend of yours, you love hanging out with them, but they get you in a lot of trouble. But you just love hanging out with them every now and then because it's just so adventurous. But you would never do that with this friend. And so, it's like having many, many, many friends that bring out different sides of you. No one person can be completely fulfilling and bring out every side of you. So I just enjoy the experience of different personalities that bring out different. Sometimes you meet somebody and you're instantly at ease and you feel like you've known them forever. And then other people you meet and you're just like, you just cannot hardly get through the conversation. There's awkward pauses. You can't even think of things to say. And then there's other people you're like, oh my God, it's been 4 hours and we haven't shut up.
Right.
So there's just different experiences with all these different kinds of people. And I enjoy that part. And
and I think
that comes with dating.
For sure. And you and Lily both having been in marriages, and myself having been in longer marriages than both of you. I think once you do that too, and you've done that, then you kind of, it's there, what that's like, the reality of it. And, sometimes something else can suit you better. Speaking of marriage, here's a question for both of you. What would you guess? I don't know if there's statistics on this. I don't know how honest people are, but how many sugar daddies do you think are married and are doing this on the side?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, we're discovering a lot. Yeah.
And they're oftentimes very open about it. And they will even indicate on the site that they're married. And sometimes it says married but looking. Sometimes it says separated. But sometimes it just straight up says married. And they want you to know that if that's not for you, then,
wow,
don't interact with them. Now, do their wives know that they're on there?
That's hit and miss. Yeah.
Probably not.
Some do, some don't. Here's the deal. And me being married 16 years, Lily, you were what, 14 years?
Yeah.
To one guy. Amy, one of our co-hosts, she has a sugar daddy that's married. He would never think of getting divorced from his wife. He loves his wife. He loves his children. He loves his life, but they're not intimate. Those
Mhm.
feelings are gone. They are basically really good friends. And she basically gave him permission to have sugar babies to fulfill that side. And what, oddly enough, and I grew up in a very religious family, and so this part is kind of hard for me to accept. But oddly enough, it is making their marriage stronger because now he's coming home, he's happier, he's fulfilled, he's loving his wife more, he's enjoying his kids more. And you know, does it work for everybody? Of course not, but for some that is working.
No, I believe that in the sense that recently did a show on open marriages. And so that I hear you talk about that. And to me, okay, that's a great situation where it's open. And not that the marriage is open, but that there's no lying going on. They've decided that they love what they
Mm-hmm.
have, but she realizes that they are out of sync as far as sex goes, and that she loves what they have enough. And there's, I guess, a trust and respect between them. Also, that he said to her, this is what I need and this is what I'm not getting. And this works for them. That I love. However, there was one show I was listening to of yours, and I believe you had another, I think it was you and Amy, and you had another guest on. And she was saying, similar situation in that she has a sugar daddy that's married and he adores his wife. And all he talks about is how much he loves her. However, the sex is really unsatisfying. And I remember you all were saying, oh, it's so great. It's so nice. It's so beautiful how he talks about her. And I thought, wait a second, because she doesn't know. And he said, because I wrote it down, he said she doesn't need to know. And I thought, nah, yeah, she does. Because in that situation, which is different than the one you just talked about, there's the lying part. So
Yeah.
every time he's with her, he's saying he's at work, he's at the club, he's with the boy, and it's and he's having sex with somebody who's having sex with other people. So there's that factor. So although I will say also that's not the sugar baby's responsibility. That's not
Right. And we certainly
that's
don't advocate that. You know, that's
right.
something
But
that,
that's
that
not
we
on
don't promote.
her.
Right.
That's not on her though. Ultimately, that's not on her.
Mm-hmm.
That's on him.
Right.
That's what he made the commitment, and that's on him. But that's the thing. It's that for me. It's always it's that have as much sex as you want, have as whatever kind of sex as you want, as long as it's consensual. Fine. It's the lying part that tough. But I guess I would assume that happens quite a bit, because I wonder how many relationships people are able to say, you know what, you get what you need, and I'll be here for you when you get back.
Yeah,
How great
obviously,
would that be?
statistically, it'd be hard to quantify that, but I would imagine it's quite high that there's a lot of lying going on. I just like that I'm in a position where I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very enjoyable on my part.
No, absolutely. It takes the stress out. Plus, it's very messy
It
to
is
get
messy.
into that situation. I mean, I would think, I would think, Lily, that would be a concern, not a judgment thing. Getting into a situation with somebody who's married, but just the fear of, you don't want to get that phone call.
Well, I actually did get that phone call. Let me
Yes, you
tell you
did.
about this.
You
So
did.
there was a gentleman from out of state, and he had a home out of state and a home here. And while he was down here, we went on just the one date. And he decided that he wanted to pursue a relationship with me. He did admit that he was married, but said that they were separated, they were getting divorced, the whole nine. Then the arrangement that he offered me was awful.
Mm.
And his personality, quickly, it became apparent that his personality was equally awful.
Mm.
And so I didn't see him again. But there had been some texting back and forth between the two of us prior to our first meet and greet. And his wife had gone through his phone, found my number, and called me. Yeah. But luckily, I didn't answer the phone. And luckily, she just left a voicemail. And I just left it alone because I had only been on the one date with him. I think she was really trying to establish that he had a pattern of cheating. She mentioned that in the voicemail.
Mm.
So it can happen. you do have to be careful. You do have to, um, well, that's
But
what
again, that wasn't your fault, and you had nothing to do with
No,
that. It was
no,
no.
and it happens, and that happens in
right.
regular dating apps too. I mean, you'll see a lot of separated or ethically non-monogamous, and you're like, does your partner know that you're non-monogamous? There's a lot that, I mean, that's dating in general, right? But
Well, and this
sorry, I
guy
just think
was
go ahead.
this guy was actually quite the scoundrel, apparently, allegedly, according to his wife, because in the voicemail, she also said, "Oh, and by the way, do you have a daughter named Victoria?" Because he's seeing her as well. So he's not only seeing you, but if your daughter is Victoria, he's also hooking up with her. I'm like, what is happening?
Wow, that's
I did not have a daughter named Victoria, so I was safe. But yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's a sad thing. You'd hope that the next step would be hopefully that she just confronts him and they deal with it. But I guess there's a little bit of anonymity that kind of goes with this type of thing than regular Tinder or Hinge. There's less chance of being seen, because I guess if you are on Tinder, you're going to see anyone who's on Tinder. But if you're on a sugar baby site, then you're only going to see people who are on a sugar baby site. So I guess they feel there's a certain amount of safety there.
I guess.
Huh.
But he probably should have deleted our messages.
They never do. Listen, I'm not even going to go into my history, but let me tell you, I don't understand. I mean, they just don't. I don't get it, Marcus. You guys,
Yeah, we don't cover our tracks very well. I've been in that situation a couple times where I had to cover up a few things that I didn't cover well.
I guess you're just preoccupied. Maybe that's just the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't keep you too long, but God, there's so much. So you started the podcast, Secrets of a Sugar Daddy, and you did it. What's the purpose of it, aside from it being enlightening and entertaining?
So what happened was, as I started meeting people and I would start telling them some of the stories that I was encountering, their faces would light up, their jaws would drop, and they're like, oh my God, you need to write a book or a blog or something. You can't let these stories go unheard. These are crazy stories. And I've got stories from being scammed to meeting my soulmate, who then was arrested by, the U.S. Marshals and deported back to Canada because of a kidnapping charge. So I've had some really crazy things happen to me. And I had a long-term arrangement with somebody, and actually somebody that we had talked, a girl that we had discussed getting married. And so we had actually gone to some pre-marriage counseling, trying to figure out if we could actually do this. Well, the relationship ended up ending, and it was really tough on me. And I learned a lot about myself. I lost a lot of weight. I had anxiety. It was right when COVID started. She moved a gentleman into into the rental house I was renting to her like a week later. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So there was a lot of things about relationships that I had to kind of learn, because when my marriage was done, there was no tears. It was just over. I was so tired. I was ready to move on, but I wasn't ready for this relationship to end. And it did very abruptly, and it was traumatic. And, I had a lot to learn about myself, and I grew a lot during that. And during the meantime, she decided to start a podcast. And she said, hey, I want you to be a guest on my podcast, because we kind of reconnected a little bit later. And I said, it'd be a great idea for a podcast, because there's just really nobody doing one like I wanted to do about sugar dating. So that's how I started. And the premise of the podcast was not just to tell shocking, crazy stories, but trying to educate people on this lifestyle and teach them how to weed through all the BS to find the really good quality people, the people that will be there till the day you die, the people who've got your back, the people that are going to listen to you at 3:00 in the morning when you need somebody to talk to. I am finding these people on the site, but it's a process, and you got to weed through a lot to get to these people. So that's kind of the premise, is how to find success in sugar dating. And some things not to do, red flags, scammers. We get into all kinds of stories, and we interview sugar babies. We interview sugar daddies. We interview relationship coaches, doctors, all kinds of people that have anything to do with dating, because like I said, it is dating. It's just compensated dating. And the nice thing is that I have hired three people that I've met on the site who are in my office. So we are talking about this all day, every day. And I'm watching how men how men interact with them and the kind of messages that they're getting, and just the dumb relationship things that both parties do. And so we kind of talk about those. And I'm not a relationship expert, but I can see something idiotic. It's not hard to say there's no way this guy's going to win your heart by talking to you like this. And so we're trying to help educate the men on, hey, you don't own this girl. It's not like a catalog and you're buying this girl. You're picking her out and buying her. You still have to treat her like a lady. You still have to treat her with respect. And just because you've got some money and some power in your mind, it doesn't give you every right to treat her badly. So we talk all about this.
Yeah, one thing I noticed every time you brought up somebody that you had been with, you usually ended it with, and we're still friends, or we're still in touch. And that's an interesting thing, because I don't know if that happens that frequently. I'm not in touch with that many of people that I've been with before. One quick question is, just out of curiosity, what my pure curiosity for both of you, how many of the most people you've dated at the same time? I'm curious, because that's a lot of money to put out, and that's a lot of gifts to receive. So I'm just curious, like, how much.
I'll let Lily go first, and then I will give you mine, because I know mine.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you two answers.
Okay.
The hardest part of sugar dating is the initial meet and greet. So I have gone on as many as 3 meet and greets in one day. Now, that doesn't mean I ended up dating the person after that, because a lot of times a meet and greet is a fail. I will say probably 75% of the time you don't get past the meet and greet. It just, for some reason, the two of you don't click, or you're not on the same page. As for actual someone I've seen routinely, well, it's kind of tricky, because I have one gentleman that I do see 2 or 3 times a week and that I travel with. And then I have 3 or 4 others that I might see once every 2 weeks, or once a month, or once every 3 months, just depending on their schedule and mine. Is my regular sugar daddy aware that we're not exclusive? Yes, he is. So that's my answer.
Right. Makes sense. And Marcus, you had yours on the go, ready to go?
Oh, yeah. I wrote down the names of 8 girls I was dating at once.
How do you have so much time?
No, and again, it's like Lily said, it's not like I was seeing them. Obviously, there's only 7 days in a week. Well, I'll admit that I have seen multiple people in a day, but it's usually some people you see like once every couple weeks, or maybe once a month or something like that. You'll just keep in touch with them. You're talking to them, and sometimes they'll reach out, and you might not even see them, and they'll just say, "Hey, I'm a little short on rent. Would you help me a little bit?" I'm like, "Sure." If I'm in a good spot with them, yeah, here's a couple $100, and even though I don't even see them. So, right. But if there's an event or a comedy show I want to go to, or a concert or whatever. I wrote it down. I had 8 girls that I currently could ask any one of those to go with me, and I could find a date pretty easily. I've narrowed it down quite a bit. I can't afford that lifestyle. There's different levels of wealth, and I'm not at that point yet. But and I do. I talk about I do like different flavors of ice cream, but I have my favorites.
You had me until that. Okay. But you know what, though, honestly, again, this is such an easy thing to judge. And I have to say, I mean, like I said before, if everybody knows what's going on and everyone is on board and everyone's getting what they need, why would anyone have a problem with it? Nobody's being hurt. Nobody's being taken advantage of.
Right.
So I also think, again, in listening to your podcast, Secrets of a Sugar Daddy, putting it out there again, and we will put it in the show notes. It is an interesting thing to listen to, because especially listening to the dynamic between you and your guest host, and I think it's very different than people will expect. Some of it, listen, I'll be very honest, I've listened to some people you've had on, and I'm like, some of it kind of didn't sit well with me. And then there's some that I'm like, wow, I could totally be buddies. So I think again, the purpose of this whole show that I do this is to bring different lifestyles and different situations to people, so they can go, oh my God, that's still not what I thought. Or it's a little bit what I thought, but maybe there's more to it than that. Because I think the more we listen
it's
to
not
people,
for
the less we
everybody.
judge.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody, but I'll tell you what is
for
exactly.
Everybody.
But at my age, being in my 50s, and Lilly can attest to her being in her 50s, we're having the time of our life. I am absolutely having more fun, more enjoyable dates, more good times than I've ever had before. And the funny thing is, and I'll just tell you that quick story. I had a birthday earlier this year in March, and one of my favorite pop artists, Dua Lipa, was in town, and I bought a suite. And I don't know if you heard this story on my podcast. I've told it a few times, but it was a 22-person suite to see the concert, and she's a favorite of so many people. So I invited all the sugar babies that I have met or that I could get in touch with, current ones, past ones, and I wanted to put them in a room and see what happened. And you know what happened?
It was a social experiment.
It was
really
an absolute love fest. Everybody was in the same mindset. They were on the same site. They all had sugar days. They had sugar dating experiences. They exchanged numbers. They became friends. Lily met some really good friends that she had never met before at that concert. And it was an absolutely amazing experience.
It was great. It was really fun. Yeah.
And they didn't know each other before then.
I made a couple of really great friendships from that experience. Now, I will say this, because you asked earlier if anybody is on there to really find their person. And I will tell you, initially when I got on there, that is absolutely what I was seeking. I was looking to find my Prince Charming, because I had kissed my share of frogs and I'd been married to a couple of frogs. And I was looking for that high quality Prince Charming, intelligent, my person. Like, everything was just so copacetic in our relationship. And I didn't find that. And I'm still having fun. And will I find that? Who knows? But I was FaceTiming a gentleman from New York City, and we were having a fantastic conversation. And he said, the reason why I got on this site is because one of my dear friends found his person on Seeking. And he said, there's an age gap. There's probably about a 12-year age difference, him being older and her being younger, but they just clicked. They have been together 7 years. They have a 4-year-old child, and they're just completely head over heels happy in a monogamous relationship. So it does happen. It can. That's why I'm holding out hope. In the meantime, I'm just living large and having fun.
That's it. It's funny because somebody asked me something about, have I learned something as I get older? And I thought, you hear all the time, you're never too old to whatever, or it's never too late to whatever. And I think that's so bizarre, because it's almost as if you're supposed to have all your fun when you're younger, when really it takes this long for us to figure out who we are, and we're still figuring it out. And so what I've learned is that the only thing I'm too old for is to listen to people tell me that I'm too old to do something. So listen, I love that you're my age and you're having a blast. And
that's
it's great.
Fun.
So I won't keep you any longer, although I feel like we could do 8 million different episodes of this. I'm going to tell people again, Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. And you've got Marcus and Lily and other guest sugar baby hosts. Guest hosts. And thank you. Is there anything that I didn't cover that you want to say before I let you go?
No, it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you letting us get the word out on kind of what this lifestyle entails and maybe some of the things that it does not. I think a lot of people are surprised, but it's not it's not cheap. It's not a cheap lifestyle, but you know what? I found that regular dating wasn't cheap for me either. So dating is just expensive. But you know, I really enjoy this, and hopefully people can learn. And if they want to experience this lifestyle, then I encourage you to listen to our podcast so you can find some success.
Absolutely. Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. Thank you, Marcus and Lily.
You
I
bet.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
on how to ruin your own reputation. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
And thanks everyone for listening. See you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to How to Ruin Your Own Reputation. Available now everywhere you get your podcasts.